GM fam, looks like we're going to have a banger of a morning. We already got a few people queued up. Thomas Biking, hello. Don Stern, hello. Looking forward to taking all your questions today. So much to talk about within the Curve ecosystem. So hard to believe that I used to have to stretch to find one topic back in the day to fill a Curve newsletter. And now it's so expansive I can barely fit everything in. So all good things, of course, come in threes. And accordingly, we had to combine 3 topics into today's newsletter. So it's a three-fer. The repegging of 3-pool, the possible displacement of 3-pool by Frax's based pool, and the efficiency of TriCrypto. And of course, any questions that you'd like to ask in the comments, be happy to deal with those as well. So let's start off with the biggie, the repegging of 3-pool. We always knew this was inevitable. Something just really felt off when 3-pool was so severely out of balance, like 70% tether at some point. We also know that tether FUD's never going away. It's been around since tether started to exist. We're surely going to see tether FUD come again, so we might expect these kinds of rebalances, imbalances. Swadeen Nanda, hello, welcome. It was also just weird. It kind of felt off looking at 3Curve and seeing it so heavily balanced towards tether. We knew it would repeg because there was always this arbitrage opportunity for the whales. It wasn't a huge arbitrage opportunity, and it wasn't even that easy. You always had to basically buy up the cheap tethers on the dexes and then go trade them in directly for $1 at Tether HQ if you had an account on like Bitfinex. So it took some time and like maybe some accounting issues because you're having to deal with centralized exchanges. At any rate, it's done. Tethers in the last few days finally reached more parity with USDC and DAI. I did a great job pronouncing your name. Thank you. Is it? I've been studying some Hindi, so I don't know if that's a Hindi name, but perhaps that's the that's why maybe my ears getting attuned to that, Swadeen. Anyway, it feels great. 3-pools rebalanced, and I assume that this was just, hey, people are more bullish. Crypto is finally pumping again. Like a lot of crypto tokens have almost doubled from the absolute bottom. So maybe people are just bullish and they're no longer afraid of Tether, no longer escaping the USDC. That was like the simple explanation. But of course, Curve's big brain Fiddy had a more interesting explanation, which I think also deserves some credence. Fiddy was pointing out that essentially the most liquid possible trading pairs are Bitcoin USDT and ETH USDT. So it might just be the effect of all these massive institutions rotating their money into stables out of crypto. I'd be interested in seeing, like, I'm sure that you could track that on chain if there's any on-chain sleuths here looking for something to check out. So lots of possible reasons, but just congratulations to 3-pool. That being said, 3-pool may not be that much longer for the world. Frax-based pool passed governance the other week, and they are wasting no time. Sam Kazemian must have looked in the mirror, looked at the absolute carnage in DeFi, and decided that a little bit more violence would be just what was suited. So there's a governance proposal up on Curve to add several different Frax USDC meta pools to the gauge controller so they can start earning rewards. And a lot of these are classic pools built on 3-pool. So this would be SUSD, LUSD, GUSD, BUSD, ALUSD, USDD. All of these are pools that were kind of like classic 3-pool pools, maybe no more. Frax base pool might be swooping in here and grabbing a ton of Curve influence. We'll have to wait and see, but Frax, as Alinara said, straight up skipping the wars and just going straight for colonization. It's also worth paying attention to if you are looking for a pool to ape into with stables, because Frax USDC, it's earning about 10% boosted Curve rewards, which means if you go to like Aladdin or one of the auto compounders, you can get even higher than that. Not that many great places to put stables nowadays, so that's pretty substantial, worth a look. Good crowd here on a Wednesday. Six viewers right now, so we'll see if we can get this to a record. Imagine there's going to be a ton of questions, so by all means, start queuing up your questions, your thoughts, your comments, and the comments. We'll make sure we get to all of them. Thomas Biking points out FraxBP, great opportunity, and layman's terms, issues everyone a hearty GM. So indeed, anyone who missed it at the beginning, GM fam, It's a great Wednesday. Yeah, the bullishness on Frax and FXS and the entire ecosystem, like, just really can't be understated. I feel like relative to Curve, they might even do less marketing, but tons more activity popping out at the moment. Good point. Swadin says Frax volume is kind of low at the moment. That's true. I hadn't thought about that. But the overall building activity at Frax is just bespoke. So over the past few weeks, Sam's been laying out a very ambitious roadmap and just taking off every single item like clockwork. So we know that there's a bunch more things coming. If nothing else, FXS has about $18 million worth of ammunition for their buyback of the FXS token. If you have any stake in FXS, that can only be a good thing. And then we also know that at some point, Frax is going to be stopping its industrial size dumping of Curve and instead moving to relocking. And this is going to come in several different forms. It's going to be locking at least 5% of the Curve as VECRV and using the remaining Curve to acquire, either through direct deposit or purchase, convex Curve. Now, Frax had, of course, been a major player in the Curve wars and had been doing basically nothing but dumping Curve because it hadn't been whitelisted. So you can imagine the effect that this might have if you're one of the people that cares about token price on token price. So again, not financial advice. Nothing here is financial advice. It's all educational, but looking pretty promising for things like FXS and Curve. So seeing some questions rolling in about Fraxy. Don asks, so instead of being built on the 3-pool lot, we'll move to the base pool. So what's going to happen is the 3-pool pairs are still going to exist. So you can't kill a Curve pool. They're going to be sitting there continuing to earn rewards or rather earn trading fees in them. And in some cases, like if there's imbalances or anything, it might be the case that some of the trading gets routed through them. But what you're not going to necessarily see is big rewards. So just cherry picking some of these pools, for example, Gemini USD, it's getting about 5% Curve boosted rewards, which is not bad. It's pretty good for a stable coin, especially because if you're on the Gemini exchange, you can get 6% there for Gemini USD. So a little shade under. Frax is promised to boost every pool that's built on it. So you might end up seeing a lot of this TVL just move where the opportunity is better. If for some reason you really care about your Gemini US dollar, you're probably going to move your liquidity from Gemini USD to the Gemini USD that was launched off the Frax base pool. Already just pulling up the numbers here, there's 28 million in Gemini USD and already 3 million in the Frax base pool. You can imagine that people are going to say, well, why don't we just move over and get better rewards once Frax starts to incentivize it? Frax has a lot of ammunition, and they've promised to heavily incentivize every single pool built on the Frax base pool. And in making these moves, they're also trying to just undercut any of the massive pools built against 3Curve that get some amount of volume. So Swadin asks, can we say that volume is a proxy for stablecoin adoption? I guess Frax is a few cycles to survive before people accept it as a base layer primitive stablecoin platform. So I'd agree on some level that volume is a proxy for stablecoin adoption, but it's like kind of interesting because we talked about Tether FUB a little bit earlier, and Tether has some of the highest volume turnover for a stablecoin, and yet that's not stopping people from like fudding it and kind of this massive exodus we saw from Tether to other stablecoins when things happen. So it's kind of interesting how all these stablecoins have slightly different properties. You might think that stablecoins would be the most boring thing in the world, but in practice, they're just kind of interesting. The way that like all these different coins, have different properties. I kind of liken it to like when you're in a dorm room and you need to do laundry really badly, and the laundry machine only takes quarters, and you only have a dollar bill. That dollar bill is still worth 4 quarters, but it's useless to you. You might be willing to pay $2 for 4 quarters if your clothes are stinky enough. So proxy, there's several different proxies for stablecoin adoption. I think that the one most people look at is TVL, just the overall total volume of a coin that exists, tends to be the one that people consider like there's the most kind of like most stuff you can do with a stablecoin with huge amounts. Swadin also points out that Maker also wants a BUSD DAI USDC base pool. That's going to be interesting. I thought it was yeah. if Maker decides to very heavily incentivize that, it's very interesting to see what happens with that. I've been sort of a fan of Curve doing the 3 pools, just because a 3 pool has so much more liquidity than a 2 pool. And you could see though where like BUSD DAI USDC base pool would kind of give this extra level of like flexibility. BUSD is often forgotten as you talk about the stable coins, but BUSD I believe is in 4th place. Let me pull that up just to check that. I don't want to, I want to fact check myself. But when you look at, number 1 is Tether, number 2 is USDC, and it's actually number 3. BUSD is 3rd. So combining the 2nd largest and the 3rd largest stablecoin into one pool, plus when you think of all the liquidity that comes out of, there's a ton of kind of DeFi activity that's happening in the Eastern world. BUSD, I think, has like a lot more applications in like Binance Smart Chain and like a lot of DeFi services coming out of the East. So you could see where like there could be a lot of activity and a lot of utility to that DAI USDC BUSD pool. So it's an interesting concept, and you don't want to bet against DAI, as Do Kwon found out. It's like the last thing you want to do. I saw one person, Napgene Willie, on Twitter saying that the possible demise of 3 pool is bad for DAI. I can't yet bet against DAI just because I saw what happened to Do Kwon. Thomas Biking is pointing everyone to the great video by Taiki Maeda on Frax. He released a few days ago. It's a banger. It's an hour-long video. I linked it in today's newsletter. Check that out once you're done with this, because it's a full hour of bullishness on FXS. And that's even scratching the surface. Frax stuff is so bullish, there could be way, way more. Also a vault for that, so folks can mint DAI from the Maker base pool and lever up 50x, just like G Uni V3 DAI. Yeah, just yet another reason that you don't want to, like, I know that some of the, when Frax base pool was launching, there was a lot of fairly negative comments on like Maker's lack of innovation, but Maker's been like a pioneer in the space and they're doing cool stuff. And if there's one moral that you could draw from the last couple of months of kind of DeFi bearishness, is you don't want to short or like you don't want to FUD these protocols that are surviving and have survived multiple of these downturns. And I would count Maker in that. Even Compound, although Compound's probably the sleepiest of all the old OGs. All these old school protocols, they're crushing it. CurvUSD will absolutely wreck every other stablecoin / money market platform. It can be used for money markets too, not just stablecoins. Yeah, I am very interested in hearing people's takes on CurvUSD. It's something I can't comment on myself, just because I know a little bit too much, but I really like hearing all the speculation on it. And I'm very excited. And one thing I'm kind of curious to see is, like, where do you think it's going to get to in terms of its TVL? Like, we know, we were talking earlier about the top stable coins by TVL. There's Tether, USDC, Binance USD in 3rd. And that is the only stable coins that have a TVL above $10 billion. When you get below that, there's a handful of stable coins, just 3 of them on DeFi Llama, that are above $1 billion, which is TrueUSD, Frax, DAI. And everything below that on DeFi Llama is under $1 billion. So if you think that CurvUSD could get to $1 billion in market cap, it could very easily become a top 5 stablecoin very quickly after launch. So we'll have to see. Cannot say much. Yeah. Win CurvUSD, your guess is as good as mine. So I'd be interested in hearing your speculation and your bets on Win CurvUSD. Remember the last update that we saw publicly was Kendrick Llama saying that CurvUSD was in an audit. You have to imagine that anyone trying to audit new Mitch Will's brilliance is going to have a tough time. So assuming that this CurvUSD is something a bit more sophisticated than simply like lend Curve, get $1, then it might take some time for it to get through audit, or maybe the audit will get through quickly. Who knows? So Great question so far. I'm going to move on to the final section of today's newsletter, which was a pretty interesting research report, while we see if any more questions pop in. Now, anyone who's been on any of these live streams knows I'm hugely bullish on Curve v2 pools. And there's sort of been like some like internal debate, which is like this actually preceded this really interesting research report that Delphi Digital released. And somehow, I don't know how this happened, because I swear I read through the entire report, and then I was going through to screenshot it and quote it, and I found that you could only see the report if you're a subscriber to Delphi Digital, which costs $1,000. And this is a bear market. Who's got $1,000 to throw around? Like, if I do, I'm buying an Ethereum with it. So I couldn't actually like quote the report directly, but fortunately I remembered enough of it that I was able to kind of recap it. Fiddy, who is like the hero of today's article, also offered a good summary. They were just going through and directly comparing Curve v2, specifically TriCrypto, against Uniswap. And the way that they were comparing this was to look at the percentage of trades and look at which of these two services offered the actual better rate. And they found that 67% of the time, it was in fact Curve v2. TriCrypto won the day. Not too surprising, but very nice to see. But they did go into further depth on this, and some of the findings were pretty interesting. So despite Curve v2 pools cleaning up about 2/3 of the time, in actuality, only about 1/3 of the transactions did go through on Curve. So even though Curve was more efficient, more people are using Uniswap. Why would this be? Like, is this just that markets are inefficient? Because the efficient market hypothesis would suggest that everyone's going to use the optimum service. So are people just stupid? And there's probably a fair amount that are. Uniswap has like a lot of like doggy tokens, and like most people like are just like, hey, I need to get myself some Shiba Inu. Let me go to Uniswap and get some. And they don't know that they can use aggregators to find the best pricing. And I have a few hypotheses. Some of this is like Uniswap does really good marketing, so they're spending a lot of money sponsoring things, and marketing works sometimes. Curve will never spend money on marketing. Curve is just going to count on other services to build on top of it, and maybe some of them will do marketing and bring volume in. It's been pretty effective. Curve is just focused on building the best services. Another possible theory is just that people are lazy. Like, once people start using Google, they're not going to switch. I find this is less credibility because money's at stake. The article addresses a little bit of it, which is gas fees. Gas fees are a big deal for shrimp and not a big deal for whales. Whales care about slippage. If you're trying to transact $1 billion on chain, $100 in gas, $1,000 in gas doesn't really matter. If you're trying to move $1 billion on chain, price impact of 1%, that's a lot of money for you. So whales care intensely about the best price. Shrimp care about gas fees. And this is borne out with some of Delphi's research, which is that they found that a lot of these people who got the worst rate were doing this on Uniswap v3. So Curve v2, because it's very technically sophisticated under the hood to be able to do this auto magic rebalancing, Curve v2 costs a little bit more in gas, even though it's programmed using the more gas efficient Viper. Uniswap v3 is like nothing technically sophisticated about it as far as each individual pool. It's just this pool has its range. It does what it does. So you can, even though it's programmed in Solidity, you can get out pretty quickly and pretty cheaply using this. So it does make sense. And this really matches some research that Naga King had done. Naga King, just one of the smartest people alive. Naga King pulled some data from subgraphs and showed that the median Uniswap v2 trade under 1 Ethereum. So exactly what we're expecting, like these like small fish that are just trying to get like a few sats or like a few gwei. The Uniswap v3 median was a little bit better. It was 4.95. The TriCrypto median, 68.47 ETH. This is just driving home the fact that Curve volume is coming from these whales. And this is like maybe bullish if you're expecting DeFi to grow, which layman's term points out DeFi is pumping. Something stirring in the background with DeFi. If this happens and TVL gets huge, if we're talking about DeFi, I think it's pretty quickly going to reclaim at least its previous TVLs. But what happens if like it goes way higher? What if DeFi becomes $1 trillion and there's players on there that want to exchange regularly billions or tens of billions or hundreds of billions, they're going to care about slippage. And a lot of this volume is going to move to curve pools, which are now proven to be the best for pricing. Of course, a lot can be said. With Uniswap v3, some of the issue is sort of rebalancing to move liquidity in range just in time. That's a complicated problem, and as long as trade volumes are smaller, it may not make sense to spend the gas fees to automatically relocate your liquidity like that. But if multi-billion-dollar whales enter, then perhaps Uniswap v3 might reclaim some of that and might get closer to parity. So there's a bit of the bear case or the bull case for Uniswap. So anyway, I thought that was a fascinating study. I've been doing some looser responsible thinking about what is it going to take, because you can make the argument also Uniswap is really good design, and that's why it does better than Curve, for example, because Curve design I really like, but it might not appeal to normal people. I don't think that's a credible argument though, because the real question is, why aren't normal people using exchange aggregators like 1inch or Paraswap, where maybe you just go through Uniswap anyway, but you can actually shop around for the better deal? The sort of analogy would be, if you're buying a plane ticket, why are you would you just go to the United site and buy whatever tickets there? Or are you going to use one of the flight aggregators? So maybe people don't know the flight aggregators exist, but maybe there's to me, it's not a design question, because a lot of these aggregators have really good design, as good as Uniswap. So what's it going to take to get normal people using aggregators? Do they just need a huge marketing budget? Do they need some token drops or something, because people like token drops? I don't really know, but whoever solves this problem and integrates Curve v2 exchanges 100% into their aggregator could do more to help Curve flip in Uniswap than Curve doing anything itself. So getting back to the comments that you all have, Thomas Biking says October to November is when you're suspecting that the Curve USD would drop. That's a good prediction. Swadine, the only FUD I can think of is Curve has to maintain a UI for Curve USD, and well, you know the track record for that. Ideally, you want 0 UI, since crypto UIs are not scalable unless it's Uniswap. Yeah. Again, I really like the Curve UI. I'm very biased on this front for reasons that I've not fully expressed publicly, but if you look at the curve.exchange, which I think is where the cool UI stuff is going on in Curve, and there's sort of open question, which is curve.exchange has this quick swap feature, which is a dedicated page that kind of looks like Uniswap. You go there, you type in which coins you want to trade, you get the rates. Very simple, very easy. Is that the page that people would want to see defaulted to when you land on Curve? So you visit curve.exchange and you just see very simple, here's the exchanges. Because curve.exchange also is currently defaulting to this pools page, which has on the left sidebar Curve swap UI, and on the right hand side has all the pools. And for my sake, I really enjoy looking at the pools. I like landing on Curve and seeing which pools are hot, what's giving me good rewards, what's jumping up in volume and TVL. But maybe the way to push more Curve volume is to make Curve's default landing page be more like that swap page. And in theory, if you're trying to get more trading volume, that's what people care about, maybe that's important. I personally like it the way it is, but I would be interested in hearing people's thoughts on that, because it's an open debate. I think that I think that the trading volume for Curve is going to come through aggregators. If you just look at the synthetics integration with Curve, that's driven way more volume than any UI could. But who knows? Not saying Curve UI bad, saying it's not scalable. It's much better to make integration so easy that everything's permissionless. 100%. Permissionless yield aggregators, DEX aggregator integration. Curve's future is B2B in that level, or protocol to protocol, I guess P2P. Curve building out this incredibly easy to integrate with base layer of DeFi and allowing other people to jump in on it just makes a ton of sense to me. I think the Curve UI is a bit complicated for new users to DeFi. When I first entered the space, it's a bit confusing. However, once you get the hang of it, it's great. Yeah. So Curve could try and simplify to attract the new users, or Curve could just get picked up by all the aggregators. Let the aggregators build the dirt simple UIs, and people might be transacting on Curve and not even know it. So it's kind of it's a philosophical question, I suppose, on some level, because the at the base of it all, we do want more Curve exchange traffic volume. Like we want more users trading on Curve because at the end of the day, the Curve token emissions are fun and cool, and there's going to be some protocols that are willing to pay for just that. But if the Curve token itself doesn't have swap and exchange and trading fees underneath it, it's got nothing. You really, really, really are relying on this floor of really good trading fees. And also, needless to say, if Curve trading fees 10x, 100x, 1000x, that's going to be really juicy for holders of the Curve token. So we have the Curve inflation rate decreasing pretty rapidly. We have potentially trading fees going up. We saw the effect of it just a few weeks ago when Curve found an extra $4 million lying around. It flushed its way through the Curve ecosystem. And for that week, Curve yields were phenomenal. Imagine if Curve trading fees 1000x, like that would be really good. So we all want to solve this problem. We all want to get Curve trading fees there. I agree though that they bespoke UI, probably not the way to do it. Maybe it is, but I think that people building services on top of this is the way to go. And I'd seen one random suggestion of just like maybe someone should just launch a aggregator that's defaulted to go through Curve, but will like use 1 inch under the hood if that doesn't exist, which is an interesting idea. But I think it would need some more like tokenomics behind it to make it really sing. So just some loose, irresponsible thoughts, loose, irresponsible speculation. By the way, going back to the Curve USD token for a minute, just because this just occurred to me. We were talking about like what TVL might it achieve pretty quickly. And let's assume it gets $1 billion in TVL. If it did, then it would only actually need, because of like the kind of silly market cap of some of these tokens, it only needs a higher than $500 million market cap of the Curve USD before Curve USD would actually flip in the Curve token. So again, I'm not able to speculate on like the design or composition of it, but it would be pretty cool if the Curve USD token had an easy run or an easy path to actually flipping in Curve underneath it. And then you can hypothesize that if the Curve DAO is able to like get some governance rights for the Curve classic token for the Curve USD, that could cause the Curve token itself to pump. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Just a ton of exciting stuff going on in the Curve ecosystem. Seeing a bunch of late joiners here. It's nice to see. So for all the late joiners, we were talking about today's article, which was a pretty fun one. We covered the 3-pool finally restoring PEG. We saw the we saw the effect of FraxBP pool. There's some governance votes where FraxBP pool might actually be displacing Curve 3-pool just as it's kind of re-achieving PEG. Oh, it looks to me like Curve retweeted the tweet that I did, which might be where some of the people are coming in from. And finally, we saw the effect of just this Delphi digital report, which was comparing TriCrypto versus Uniswap, and found that about 2/3 of the time, Curve's TriCrypto was giving better quotes than Uniswap, and yet for some reason, 2/3 of people were using Uniswap, and they attribute it mostly to gas prices because that effect disappeared on Arbitrum. So, especially for the new people, but for everyone, any questions that you have? We're at the portion where I yacked on for half an hour. So unless you want to just see me start rambling into like severe dementia, you're gonna have to steer me in the right direction. Otherwise, we might just say it's been a fantastic live stream as always, courtesy of your comments and questions. Give it just a second here while I drain the rest of my coffee. All right, it seems like the chatters. Garrett, am I wearing pants? That's a good question, and maybe one of these days we'll do a live stream after dark where we get into some of the saucy questions. Subscribers only, pay-per-view, and I will just unsolicited anytime someone makes a donation, I'll stand up. NFTs soon, Keck. Yeah, Yeah, we finally got our live chat going, and I haven't gotten a chance to. I've been super slow on my responses. I've been working on a lot of stuff behind the scenes, so I've been like pretty busy and haven't been able to keep up correspondence as much as I like. Um, but I don't know much about NFTs in terms of the trading or in terms of like what the big tokens are doing. But I have been doing some work here and there on some like fun side NFT projects, and on top of it, like I even have this kind of idea of sort of loose tokenomics for how I could create like a tokenomics behind just the articles that I release each day. I think NFTs would be very suited for it. So I'd be interested in talking with any tokenomics chads about how we can actually utilize NFTs for that. And the basic idea, I keep having this kind of struggle because there's a lot of paid subscribers. I don't know how many people here in the chat are paid subscribers. And even though like all the money from paid subscriptions goes to support PackDAO, which is doing phenomenal work in terms of serving as a public goods DAO, it's still important to me that the people who are paying and get some sort of value for what they're paying for. So I always have this like imbalance between like how much should I just release the articles to the public because it's in the general public interest for like educational purposes versus how much should I keep the content restricted to support the subscribers. And in some cases, like there are articles that have to be always paywalled to restrict the flow. And in some cases, there are articles that can't be, but there's enough in the middle. And I'd like to turn this over more to the community of subscribers to have a say. So I'm looking at an ERC token for that, where people who pay for subscriptions can actually vote on what articles like distribution schedule and rights look like. And then something parallel to that I'm looking at is issuing an NFT for each article, which you could maybe purchase with either, if you want to raise money, it could be you could purchase it using stablecoins or ETH, or you could purchase it using that ERC20 token, where you could then actually like own an NFT signifying like some extra rights to the article. But then I'm not exactly sure how like the balance of voting would go for the ERC20 versus the person who purchased the NFT of the article. So this is where I need a tokenomics chat to think through the implications of this, as well as like other fun games that we can do. Maybe there could be like some sort of fun game where you're like owning an NFT for the article, like can mint some amount of tokens. So if it's like a banger of an article, maybe it mints more tokens. But again, I like need to chat with some tokenomics chads to like really flesh out the idea. So that's neither here nor there. But if you have thoughts on that, we have the Discord up, which is linked in the comments here. We'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts on how we can like take advantage, because we're Web3, and if the thesis is that Web3 is going to flip in everything, then we need to start building more and more cool Web3 services. And as much as I like Substack, I'd like to kind of move more off of like Substack, which at the moment is only allowing payments in USD, and allow like degens who want to stay anon to be able to pay and contribute using Ethereum. Oh, layman's terms, I think I have just the person. Want a front end too? Yes, I am badly in need of a front end. So I can knock out smart contracts all day long, but I cannot do a front end to save my life. So if you know a front end person, very happy to talk. For this particular project, because it's like not looking to make money, I don't know if there's payment there, but I can also link up with some projects that maybe can pay. We can fork it. Yeah, perfect. All right, friends, thank you so much. This has been a good live chat. Yesterday I had to jump a little bit early because a busy day. Today also a busy day, but hopefully in the next week or two, I'm going to be having a pretty big release in terms of the tutorial side of things. So I'm going to be interested to hear your feedback on that as that gets out. But got to get to that. I've got a lot of work to do on that. This is just for fun. That is like more important than the critical path. So I'll get to it. But thank you, everyone. GM, enjoy your morning.